Good afternoon, everybody. How many people have never been here? Okay, good deal. So anyway, this is the Blueberry Patch, and we're glad you're here. The Blueberry Patch is an art, music, and literature venue that was created by Dallas Borer on 7/7/77. Actually, we're celebrating our 40th anniversary this year. It's going to be a big party on Friday, July 7th, so you don't want to miss that. But he started it in 31st Street South in St. Pete and moved out to St. Pete for a while, and then we've been here in Gulfport since 1994. Dallas passed away about 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago. About 5 years ago, we formed a 501c3 organization, Sharevival at the Blueberry Patch, and that is a term that Dallas actually coined. Sharevival means that we have to share to survive and survive to share, and so that's what that's all about. As you can see, another big tenet of what Dallas was wanting to do at the Blueberry Patch was to prevent things from going into landfills. And so we have a lot of recycled art, and that's what a lot of things that we do around here. So we don't throw anything away unless it's actually deteriorating. And we try to keep things. Interestingly enough, Martha's boyfriend George just brought us some. Don't know if you can use it, but they're just little squares, just colorful squares, and like, yeah, we'll use that. Somebody will find a way to use that and turn it into art. So check it out. There's so many great things going on here. We have our mural that our goal is to actually have this all completely filled in by the 7th, July 7th, and we got some artists that are going to be doing that. So. Interestingly enough, last year in Creative Loafing's Best of the Bay, we were actually nominated for 5 different things, and we received 3 different awards, one of which was the best open mic for poetry in the Tampa Bay area, so that's pretty significant. We also got best riff on a national festival for the Burning Man Festival out in Nevada. We do an annual Blueberry Burning Brother, and so we got recognized for that, and we got second for public art non-mural, and that's pretty special because it was second to the Dolly Museum. So we're pretty proud of that, and we got a lot of great things going on here. We do the 1st, 7th, 11th, and 22nd of every month. The 1st is usually an open mic, although occasionally, like last night, we had it was a Saturday, so we had a special event. It was a band. Actually, my band performed here last night, which is cool. I'm in a band called Troy Youngblood and the Soulfish. And we also, but normally that's an open mic if it doesn't fall on a Friday or Saturday. And we try to feature new artists, people that have not been up, or maybe they're new to playing music or they're new to the stage, and we want them to get up and get that confidence in front of a supportive audience. Our theme up here, and this counts for today too, for our literary events, is be fearless on this stage. And that's what this stage is for. It's going to be a group of people that are going to support you, and that's really what we're all about. That's what our 501c3 is about, promoting music, art, literature, and putting it out into the community for people to be able to enjoy and participate. On the 7th, we also do an open mic, and then the last hour is a featured artist. So we typically have, again, upcoming artists that, they've got a set of music, maybe an hour they want to play, and we have them come up and play. On the 11th is always an open jam with the Blueberry Patch Ramblers that we call it, and that's where we actually get a core group of musicians, and then everybody comes up and jams. And so sometimes it's magical, sometimes it's a train wreck, but it's always a good time. But most of the time it's pretty good. But sometimes we just had one a couple of months ago that was it was all spiritual, really. It was amazing. I was actually part of it, and it was really an amazing event. So we try to, again, it's all about bringing people together. And then on the 22nd, we always have a featured band. And unfortunately, our band that we had for April 22nd canceled. They were a band out of New Orleans. So we are rescheduling, finding someone else to fill in. That shouldn't be too hard, though. And then occasionally, a few times a year, we do some bonus nights as well. We have different events. We have, as I mentioned, our Burning Blueberry Brother, which is always in November. And I don't know the theme this year yet. And then we also have our Blueberry Ball, which is where we all get dressed up nice and fancy-like and have a band. And we actually this year had Apple Butter Express, which is a local band that's made it big. They've actually they played here, one of the first places they ever played, and now they're actually touring around the country. So they come back here and play for us, which is pretty neat. But like I said, we all get dressed up. This year, the theme was disco ball, so you see a few discos or balls around. And then we have our Peace, Love, and Blueberries Festival in February, always the last Saturday of February. That is Dallas Bohr's Peace, Love, and Blueberries Festival. His birthday was on February 27th, I believe, or 28th. And so we celebrate that each year through our festival. And we got a couple other things that are going on this year. We're sponsoring Orange Blossom Jamboree, which we do every year. And like I said, the July 7th is going to be a big party. That's Friday night. It's the 40th anniversary of the Blueberry Patch. So we also do Volunteer Day every Saturday. So if you were interested in coming out and checking stuff out and helping out, everything is done by volunteers here. We don't have anybody that gets paid. We do pay the musicians that come and play here, and we share the door with them. And so we're happy to do that because they work real hard and don't get paid that much. As poets and authors know very well also. But so everybody's a volunteer, and we come out and we create stuff, we clean up, we just everything you see here is done by volunteers. We actually, if pretty good people are good about cleaning up after themselves. You'll see lots of stuff in the recycle bins, but we had about 350 people here last night, and you look around and for the most part, it's pretty cleaned up. So. We're real proud about that, and it is all about let's just reuse, recycle, and respect each other and everybody. So I'm just kind of rambling on right now because I know you might get some more people. So anybody have any questions about the Blueberry Patch that they want to answer? How big is it? That's a good question. I'm not sure. I think it's about an acre. I think each property is about a half an acre. So we have next door, actually, which is something that was kind of acquired. We actually have we don't own the property, but we have a benefactor that was very good friends with Dallas, and he willed it to her, and she's leased it to us at a very reasonable rate for the properties. So we have next door is the Gulfport Labyrinth, which is about, if you walk from the center or from the outside to the center back to the outside, is 1,700 feet. So you're walking about a quarter of a mile. And there's lots of other artwork. Most of the things that you see over next door are things that were from our Burning Blueberry Brother art displays over there. And so we don't open that all the time. We do open it for the literary mic for people to walk around, but we don't open it every event. But for our bigger events, we do. So I'm going to turn it back over to Ian now, and we'll get to hear some poetry.
Okay. This is the first volume, edition 2 of Sharing to Survive and Surviving to Share. And Martha put this together. Anyways, I wanted to read a comment in here, which I was trying to think how it went. And anyways, these are testimonials and comments about how people viewed and view the Blueberry Patch. It's like being inside of a Christmas tree looking out. So, last month, I was on a rant of shrinklets. And I figured I would read one more. Oh, wait. We've got people.
All right. Just your time.
Ernest Hemingway, A Farewell to Arms. Frederick Henry, medic aid, by an English nurse, is laid. War-crossed lovers, World War I, find their love life just begun. Caporetto, bloody battle, routed soldiers die like cattle. Frederick's wounded, legs a mess. Kathy helps him convalesce. Swiss chalets provide sancrisy. They conclude a separate peace. Pregnant now, her luck falls through. Babe is Babe is stillborn, she dies too. War was futile, vile, absurd. Glory, just a dirty word. Pride and strength, emerge worthwhile, plus an earnest writing style. I'm going to have Vince get up, and he's going to share us all of his wonderful stuff.
One of the first poems I ever got published about 30 years ago. Am I okay back there? Yeah, one of the first poems I ever got published about 30 years ago. It was called "The Best Writer in China Writing in English." I feel that today I might come within the first 3 best in the group, so I'm feeling really confident today. All right, this first one. It's called the Zumba class, and it's written for Ellen, who's a good friend of mine, a very good friend of mine. All right. Because you come to the dance like a tentative spirit in a grown woman's body, as if once again acquainting yourself with the rhythm that had always been welled up deep in your body, which is a kind of soul. And because you come to most things, great and small, as we say, similarly, touching, feeling, as on those nights with their stars, the dimmest of which may only reveal themselves from the corner of our eyes, and to stare directly at them were as if to cause a blush in a physical system not made to blush, and they are gone. Or like that moment on that wooden platform path through what remains of the old Florida, the oldest Florida, before the invasion of the white fever, before even the shell collectors and hammock raisers. The florid land, before good and evil, with only cycles like tides exchanging death for life and life for death, in manatee estuaries of time. No one to name the simple intimacy of the pattern, the dance. And on that pathway between cross planks so carefully positioned and nailed down that between them nearly nothing could fit, you spotted the dead Anole lizard, whose corpse between the planks indeed did fit. And the moment we decide not to move it to a safer place and leave the limp creature there where chance has found the resting place, and will make it what can be made. Like the discovery of a rhythm in a dance, the path of the weave, and more as each wave reaching a shoreline is more. It's called Tampa Bay. It's really short. If you accept the possibility of a parenthetic afternoon and the ray or two of setting sun escaping from spaces remaining between condos, and the pelican creening out on the bay, the temporary good nature of gulls, and the one young girl who teaches cartwheels to another, younger still, perhaps your sister, then we are all King Midas, and each thing touched by our longing is gold. I was thinking about that whole idea of this parentheses that we live in. Outside that parentheses, there's nothing outside the parentheses. It's like what happened all the aeons before you were born. The same thing is going to happen all the eons after you're dead. So it's this little parentheses that we're living in. And I expanded on that from a 10-line poem to a 10-page poem. No, only 3 pages. How can I end this poem, which I have yet to begin? We, the plurals of we, were just sitting there in a kind of parentheses or bubble, like random, though not unhappy bits of flotsam that occurs just for minutes after sunset, when the bay's agitation settles down to mere smoothness, sucked clean of all of solar energy, or, as I like to think, simply to rest from bearing the weight of Earth's daily commerce, or none of the above, as is so much we touch with our longing, a product of none of the above, mere collision of real and virtual particles which have somehow disappeared into a dimension we have no certain knowledge of. Just sitting there as I am, in mere smoothness, though rattled still by this project lacking a beginning. Is it that real living, pure living, pura vida, as they say in little Costa Rica, penciled in between its Atlantic and Pacific beaches, may only take place at these moments? The sudden stoppage of traffic on a busy freeway when we are only out for a random ride? Or the moment of the unexpected gaze at a cliff where a 1,000-year-old handprint on a rock surface proclaims, I was here, someone was here, but who? Or a kiss on the cheek that for no reason should be different from any other kiss, suddenly drains the soul of all its busy commerce and is baptismal in a time before baptism. The pure life, struck like a vein of gold at the bottom of a mine, otherwise dug from greed. In other words, where to end when I don't know where it begins? Cannot step beyond the margins of the poem to view it as a distant wholeness, where words begun in the simple sound of breath, the pumping of the singular heart, end not far away. Speculation or diagnosis based on solid physics of a flat universe, extending to where the eternal may no longer reach, island adrift beyond their very light and echo. Heady just to imagine when there is so little to go on, a half-remembered fable from a golden book, a singular gaze, your gaze who may be hearing or reading this, or thinking this, as if once upon a time we are all mirrors of each other with the same spin on things, the universe say, repeating in compassion what each reflection said. In a field of ripples we ourselves created as it went about creating us. This parenthetic moment, when a sloop drifting at half sail requests our undivided though momentary attention, and an osprey wheels round in midair, dips, then turns away, deciding the object of its desire has descended to depths beyond its ken. It strikes me as if all this wonder that is you pages got stuck. All this wonder that is you, or we, the many plurals of we, for that matter, and all that surrounds us were contained in this one parenthesis, bubble of sorts that suddenly inflates as if from nowhere between the nothing or before and that which follows. Or maybe it's only the sun's afterglow calms the waters running deep within as the true light sinks behind those condos on the outer bank where meals are now being prepared, TV turned on, a meme is being posted to FB. This is a test. Only one person out of 10 will copy and paste this to their wall, if only for the next 10 minutes or the continuing eons, whichever come first. I got more stuff, but I'm gonna leave it there, and if there's more time, maybe later I'll do something else, okay?
Yeah, I get you. No, I know what you're talking about, man. A lot of energy goes up on totally relate.
The Courtship of Miles Standish. Standish, not a not a lady not a lady killer. Bids John Alden, woos Priscilla. For him, she is not put on. Why not do your own thing, John? Plights thought, or thoughts are plighted, or whatever those benight. Time's demand of true lovers. Soon they snuggle, twist the covers, smiling bravely. Standish mumbles, "This is it, ye cookie crumbles." Silly little things. Shrinklet. I was going through all of my, well, I've been organizing my library, and it's a hot mess, and books are all over the place. And I found some wonderful reviews from different colleges. This one is called Last Class. Thus what we have learned is that our greatest poets were the death-obsessed loners who seldom enjoyed the pleasures of lovers, despite living in a content state of sexual excitation. They started as revolutionaries and atheists, or they went to Harvard, or voted Republican, or mowed the yard. The night sky was starry and told them stories. Many didn't drive. They walked to work, writing poems in their heads, or staying in their rooms, staying out of trouble. Prayed to God no longer believed in. They felt like jerks in company, not knowing how to behave. They masturbated a lot, grew experienced in solitude, in pain, the power of primal hurt, the witty epithets on a well-kept grave. That's David Lehman, and that's out of Plowshare, which is out of Emerson College. I'm going to bring up, where'd he go? Rob left. Rob McCabe. Rob is a wonderful Gulfport resident, and I have no idea how long he's been here now. I feel like I've known him for a decade. And he's a great poet and an amazing writer and so on and so forth. So he's going to share with us his wonderful stuff.
Thank you, Ian. Hello, Blueberry Patch.
Hi, Rob.
Happy April Poetry Month. This month, I have decided I am going to write a poem a day for the month of April. I already have 2 down. I've only got 28 left to go. This first poem that I'm going to read is a new poem that I wrote just this morning in a response to a prompt by my very good friend and mentor, Lauren Hilger. She is a New York-based poet. She works with Facebook's One Room Poetry. So Lauren, this poem is for you. And the assignment was to write a poem about a word. So I love this word. It has such richness. Ubiquitous. And the title of the poem is Ubiquitous. For Lauren. Ubiquitous. What a rich sounding word. It rolls on my tongue like mead. Rich, thick, textured, ubiquitous. Such a gorgeous word. It conjures up images of golden shafted arrows piercing the heart of some Catholic saint. It is ecstatic in its sound. Ubiquitous. Like a word filled with ancient magic. A word of great power offering untold wealth. Ubiquitous. $1,000,000 word worth a single penny. Ubiquitous. Being present everywhere at once. How mundane. Thank you. In the summer of 2000, after I left my job as a librarian over at the Westland Public Library, a friend of mine and I decided to take a trip through England to see all the pagan sites, all the standing stones and the dolmens that are prominent in the British countryside. And we ended our trip in Glastonbury. Now, for those of you who don't know, Glastonbury is a very ancient pagan site. They have a museum that has two kinds of running water, the red water and the white water, and it's just a magical place. Well, there's this hill that they have a circular path that winds up to this big tower that was built by a Christian saint. But the legend has it, if you walk around it a certain number of times, it opens up the gateway to the fairy world. So I did that. Nothing happened, unfortunately, although there is a weird story that I shall share some other time with you about someone that I think I met that may have been a fairy, because the next morning when I went to say goodbye, the people at the front desk said, there was no one here that you're describing like that. That, to this day, still has me wondering. Anyway, the title of the piece is Glastonbury Magic 2000. Full moon beckons me to her mound of secrets. Warm summer night, I hear the voice of the Great Mother call to me. Walking through the sleepy village to the magical Tor, the path ever winding, ever round, to our sacred spot of the divine. Ancient Mother, I hear your call. I pass a field where a calf suckles from its mother's teat. Stars shine brightly on the dark skies. Mystery of mysteries, I alone travel the sacred path. Her voice growing stronger with each step until I reach the top where the Tor stands. I walk 13 times around the Tor, hoping to open the gate to the land of the She. The wind howls, I open my arms, and I feel her love wash over me like balm. Thank you. I've been doing a lot of persona poems lately, and one of my favorite authors is Virginia Woolf. So I wrote this poem. It's called Virginia, and here it goes. The madness I have dreaded has come again, and I can no longer stand the pain. The birds singing in classical Greek, Thanatos, 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 death, death, death is the freedom I seek. The bitterly cold river ooze, so long and deep as the final stop where I can sleep. Wading into the churning water, a badger stares at me from a nearby bush. A fox barks, telling me not to worry. I think of Leonard, alone in despair, remembering days of contentment before my illness overcame me again. I pray for his peace of mind. He has been so good to me. I don't think two people could have been happier. The laughter of small children from the nearby meadow singing oranges and lemons. The final verse rings in my ears. Here comes a candle to light you to bed, and here comes the chopper to chop off your head. I laugh and pick stones from the shore. Their heaviness weighs me down. Thank you. I think I read this before, but I like this one so much that I wanted to share this with you guys again. I was inspired by Sylvia Plath's poem, The Moon and the Yew Tree, to write this poem called Sentinel. So here it is, Sentinel. In this cemetery, long untenanted, the broken, decaying tombstones like rotting teeth glow with a sickly light under the light of the full moon. If you listen, you can hear the whispered voices of the dead. And in the small cemetery set aside for heretics and witches, a great yew tree rises like an angry finger from the shunned grave of an executed witch to the moon, the eye of some ancient, unnamed pagan goddess. The yew tree glows with a preternatural light. It draws me to it, seduces me with its magic. I see the dance of light and shadow as the moon smiles down, ever watchful on the scene below. I stand in silence, watching through the night, patiently waiting for Judgment Day, as the bell tolls slowly from a nearby ruined church. Thank you. And I have one more. For those of you who don't know, I absolutely love poetry. And one of my favorite poets is Federico Garcia Lorca, who was martyred and murdered by Franco's, Generalissimo Franco's army in Spain and buried in an unmarked grave. No one to this day knows where this man's body lies. But I fell in love with his plays first, before I discovered his poetry. Blood Wedding, the House of Bernarda Alba, Yerma. He wrote a lot of plays, but he's mostly well known for his poetry in Spain. So I woke up one night after a very interesting dream, and I wrote this poem for him called a love poem for Federico Garcia Lorca. Last night, I dreamed of you, my raven-haired gitano, dreamt of your succulent mouth, rich and full like the black grapes from the vineyards near the unmarked place where you lie. Te amo, mi amor, you tenderly whisper in my ear. Your kiss is sweeter than the wine of the valley which I drank ages ago. I could melt in your arms, drift down to where you lie with your white bones buried beneath the thick, rich earth stained with your blood. Tu eres mi cariño, I whisper. Federico, you've been dead for so long, your voice silenced by Franco's fascist bullets. And today in my country, freedom is on tenuous ground. Will bullets silence my voice too? I don't know the answer to this question. So all I can do is write, live my life, and think of you. Gracias. Thank you.
This is from Eckert Review. College produces these. And interestingly enough, it's called Skipping Stones. Skipping stones seems natural, and it is. But the angle from hand to water must be acute. The tip of the stone tilted up just so, and the speed proportional to the stone's weight, the most pleasing results being widely spaced, hops of 5 or more, and thought this may be below. On the scale of mortal triumphs, I have seen on a Provincetown beach 13 skips make a grown man cry. That's by our St. Pete, or Florida poet laureate, Peter Mankey. I also wanted to read one more testimonial. It's giving and living. It's just what Dallas said it is. It's sharevival. To live it is to give. If you're giving of yourself, your art, your soul, I come here to invest in my own art. Can I have your name? John. John what? John Schuler, okay.
Thank you for that. I've never done this before, so I hope there's somebody out there who's never been here before. Be fearless on the stage. There's no way for me to be fearless on the stage, but I figure the more fear I have, the more courage I have. Okay? So I hope there's people here that remember when poetry rhymed, because some of my poetry, a lot of my poetry rhymes. I like it to rhyme. It has a satisfying feeling. It's a kind of folk ballad type story narrative that winds through my stuff. So there's a little story behind this first poem. I was at 2010, I was at our health club in the locker room, and I just got out of the shower, and I was naked. And you don't have to imagine into that very much. But a man walked in, and he started to undress, get ready to work out. And as he undressed, I noticed he had a missing arm, and he had a scar that went down the length of his body and wound around his leg to his foot. And I thought this might have been a war wound and maybe a vet. And I've made it a point not to walk away from my discomfort with that kind of thing. And so I spoke to him and I said, is that a war injury? And he looked up at me a moment, just trying to decide, I think, what to say. And he sat down and he started to tell this story. He said, no. He said, this was the worst decision of my life, what you see. He said, as a young father, my daughter was flying a kite. The kite got tangled up in a high wire. And I foolishly, he said, climbed the pole. And the last thing I remember was reaching for the kite. And the next thing I remembered was the scent of burning flesh in my nose. So we talked for a bit. I'm a psychologist, and listening and asking questions is one part of my skill set. And finally we finished up and he went on. And one of the things I do when somebody's story has moved me is I write a poem. I have a collection that never ends. It's called Prodigious Profiles. And whenever possible, I try to get that poem back to them. So I wrote a poem for him. I folded it up, put it in my gym bag, and I went back day after day, and I never saw him again. Now just hold, I never saw him again, because when I'm done with the poem, we're going to tie into that and give you the rest of the story. Can you hear me? I don't project well. Okay? This is called Sacrifice for a Kite. What sacrifice offered to return a red kite, to resume the day's play with one more pure flight, to dry the soft tears of a child's blue eyes when they see their fair kite tangled high in the skies? Oh, what heart is so big to address this small loss, to reach beyond reason, to transcend all cost? It's a rare kind of courage to climb ever higher for a kite so entangled in an overhead wire. And the grass was so green and the sun shone from above as he climbed the tall pole on this mission of love. And he never did notice the buzz in the air, his clothes, how they clung, and the rising of hair. He was drawn to the symbol of earned liberty in the soaring red kite when finally set free. And with triumphant reach and glory so near, and his heart softly beating, unencumbered by fear, and the jolt that ensued, he cannot recall, not the 10,000 volts, not the scream, not the fall. And the sacrifice given, as great as it was, got a nod from the angels. There's just no greater cause. For the loss of a leg or an arm or an eye has been offered by others to quiet a cry. Some rise to the call, sing chains to undo, for a kite or a flag, whether red, white, or blue. Inspired by kites or bird on the wing, risking all for freedom, it's an instinctive thing. And the kite blew away when the storm came around. It blew higher than ever, and it never came down. And he never came back until 4 years later. And I came out of the shower and I was naked, and he came out of the sauna and he was naked. And I stood there a moment and I thought, can I give this? I don't know. You know, we're so vulnerable here. But he saw me and he came over and he said, "Hi, John." I said, "Hi, Tom." He said, "You know, I've kept you in mind. You made a lot of difference to me, you chatting with me about what happens, as people usually don't ask." And I said, "Well, Tom, I don't want you to take this wrong, but I've got this poem, I think, in the bottom of my bag somewhere." So I dug it out, and it was all folded up and water-stained. And I said, "Tom, why don't you take this home?" It was about that incident. And sometime when you got nothing better to do, read it. And he said, "No, no, no." He said, "I'm reading this." And with his one arm and his teeth, he opened it up, and he's standing there naked, and I'm standing there naked. And he starts reading this poem. And the tears start to flow. And by the time he was done, he was weeping, and I was weeping. And he turned to me and he said, "I never would have been able to find that story in what I did." And he said, "This means so much to me." And I was reminded of what a poem can do to render events meaningful. So, that's my story. So here's a little poem that was also based on a true story. Another meeting, but a different kind of meeting. And the events of this were, I got into the pursuing of ideas for a while, and would follow them as far as they would go, and I'd write poems about them. And I got into the area of physics and was writing poems of time and space and dimensions. And it was really getting to me as I got down into the substance and reading a lot in this. And another relevant point here is, as a psychologist, I started some of the early work into understanding Asperger's disorder. I don't know if you know that. And started one of the very first schools to help young people with Asperger's, of its type, the first in the country, which has something to do with this poem. It's called An Evening with Einstein. Now this is a dream. As a psychologist, I've interpreted many dreams, helped clients with their unconscious process and neuroses, but sometimes you hear a dream, and I know them because I've had them myself, and this is one that's not about the unconscious, but it's a visit. And here's the poem. An Evening with Einstein. Last night my dream was restless, and then showed up Einstein. He asked with awkward shyness, could he be a friend of mine? In this I felt quite honored, agreeing I could spend a dream or two in company with Einstein, my new friend. He didn't seem to talk that much, so questions I withheld. It seemed he longed to just hang out and wished some myth dispelled. He looked unsure how to engage, but wanted me to stay, wanted me to know something, and this was Einstein's way. His place was sparsely furnished, not messy, just unkept. His clothes were business rumpled, and for our airs made no attempt. I paced the floor just as he did for reasons not made clear. I wasn't sure just what to do, was glad to just be near. Somehow I sensed the time to go, but he said, please return. So I took down his number, for there seemed much more to learn. Then suddenly alone I looked, but couldn't read the number. I feared I now had lost my friend forever in my slumber. So I asked a passerby, "Have you seen my friend Einstein?" And a chill... I'm sorry, I goofed up on that. So I tried to ask a passerby, "Have you seen my friend Einstein?" But he looked at me like I was mad, and a chill went down my spine. So I turned to go, when there appeared the Einstein I befriended. My heart leapt up for learning that our story had not ended. And with him now there were others who like him they had shared a life of being lonely, misunderstood and scared. They had this thing in common where they could not connect, and no one knew their private world, just knew their intellect. And even with their lasting fame, they wished to have it known that none of them had never known how to say they feel alone. And then with just a nod goodbye, and this I won't forget, he paused a moment, raised his head, and in that moment our eyes met. And I'll never know why he chose me to visit on this plane where energy and mass and speed of light don't lose or gain. But I'll keep a light on at dream's door so he can plainly see where time entwines, we'll just hang out, my friend Einstein and me. Okay, do you have time for one more? This is a little risky for me. It's very risky for me because I started writing this morning, and it's in a, it's not done. There's a reason I want to read it. I'll share with you what that is. I have a young adult niece who is spiraling down the hellhole of ecstasy addiction in a state far away. And for the last year and a half, my texts have not been answered, my phone calls not picked up. And nothing seemed to get through. So yesterday, the night before yesterday, as the sun was going down, I was walking back to our condo, and I saw an osprey perched on the mast of a sailing yacht. And I took out my phone and I took this picture. And as the picture came out, there's you can see the tops of palm trees on the bottom and the mast and the outline of this osprey and the changing colors of sunset go up, and just above the osprey is the crescent of a moon. I thought of her, and I sent the picture with just a note that said, "You are always in my heart." And within a few hours, I get a picture back. And it's a picture of a stormy sky and dark, terrible clouds, and her attempt to tell me some of what was inside of her. So I wanted to reach out back, and I have my own pictures of stormy clouds, and in fact have been in those stormy clouds, and I doubt that she knows how much I know about where she's at. So this is in a little different type, but I'm hoping you might be able to share back with me some of this is just to reach out for her in faraway Oregon through the energies of this wonderful place. I'll finish the poem and send it to her, but I'm trying to get to something here. It's a little Dylan Thomas-y in some way, but it's the way it came out. It's called Gray Twin. When the great grays would rise up, and they, raging across the flat and fertile plains, erasing, gray-green and growling, callously consuming one by one the farthest farmsteads on distant, disappearing horizons, growing with the skin-crackling count of every county mile. A boy-child still, now possessed, throwing off his shoes and shirt and such, naked gone as a sleepwalker into the pre-storm stillness in the far-flung fields of family farmstead. Mother's cries lost to defiant deafening. Gray brother unbridled, riding, rising, rolling upon the blackness billows, whispering, whispering, whispering the child's unspoken name. A tornado he would have troubled to know who there was talking. Gray brother, gray twin born to the sky when I was born to the earth, yes, I confess. Gray twin storming, ever-reaching, songless seas and mammoth mountains, a twilight darkness. He was there, gray and grand, lost brother, with a twin's knowing. He shouting sorrows, what I could not shout, he alone witness to my withering innocence. Wandering in my own wildly gray wilderness, oh yes, he was there, and we, reflecting each other like mirrors of a stormy nighttime. And poor mother, she bewildered by this stranger child, and he bewitched by a storm and wind wandering into the storm. Poor father, that one, dropped off by gypsies, no doubt. And when the green gray of dripping dawn fog erased the object outlines, gray brother oracle called he was, sagging six-gun on hipless waist and soggy cowboy hat, battered boots and tattered blue jeans, wandering, disappearing into the dark and bleak blur, disappearing but for the shine of the sheriff's star upon his child's chest. That's to Danny.
Wanted to comment on this book I found, Shrinklets. Tiny book. 70 of the world's towering classics cut down to size. Origin of Species, Charles Darwin. All creatures strive, the fit survive. Out of this surge, species emerge. Throw the bums out is nature's shout. And the class will tell, sex-wise as well. The age-old race to win or place. At last to show persistence, although the way things look, none dare to make book. Sneak attack. I found these great opposing definitions in the American political lexicon, and they're funny. Economic goal. Left equals equality. Right, prosperity. Guiding trinity, the left. Any loving unit of, race, gender, class, the right. Married father and mother and children. Good and evil, the left. Relative to the individual or society, the right. Based on universal absolutes, humanity's universal absolutes. And the last one, gender, the left. A social construct, the right, male and female. So, looking through that Shrinklets book again, Principles of Political Economy by John Stuart Mill. John Stuart Mill, by a great effort of will, overcame a natural principle and wrote the Principles of Political Economy. A quip, two flip. Mill's tract, in fact, has bright insight. Quote, man's power over nature should be used to shorten the hours of work. Unproductive consumption, if adds to the joy of life, may be regarded as a true economic surplus. Another quote, there is not much satisfaction in contemplating a world with scarcity, a place where a wild shrub or flower could grow without being eradicated as a weed in the name of improvement of agriculture. Money is only a medium of exchange. For 1848, this stuff is great. So, anyways, love to call up a new face of someone I haven't met. What is it again? Bruce Wright. That's right. I'm sorry.
At Walmart, $8.
Exactly.
Exactly. All right. How's everyone? Oh, I love that excitement. So, I got my stuff on here. I started putting it on my phone because I don't know about you guys. I'm really bad at remembering my own poetry, so I write it down and have to read it often. And the irony of it is I perform a lot with a band, and it's more of a collective that we do. It's the Refuge Beat Poets Collective. And so it's awkward sometimes having a music stand up here when I'm performing. But I like performing with at least percussion, but usually I'll do with a band. I play multiple instruments myself, but I've never been able to coordinate either sing. Well, I can sing okay while I play, but I've never been able to coordinate playing while I recite poetry because I play stringed instruments. Kind of like, I guess my hero in that sense would be Lou Reed because he kind of really talks his way through songs, and I kind of like that. The other influences for me are some of the black beat poets and early hip hop. I love Chuck D of Public Enemy, but I also like classic poets like William Blake, and I love Pablo Neruda. Anybody Neruda fans out here? And William Blake, any William Blake fans? William Blake can be kind of dark. I like Flannery O'Connor too, who's not really a poet, but her writing is just pretty cool, kind of that 19th century Gothic. And, you know, I've always kind of enjoyed the idea of a stream of consciousness thing. It's almost pre-hip-hop, although some of the early hip-hop may be reflective of it. So I'm going to do a few poems that I've written, but I'm going to try what's called freestyling. Anybody familiar with freestyling? I started doing this, I guess it was this year. I'm kind of a late bloomer in writing poetry. I went through a bad divorce, and I guess that just inspired me to write poems. And anybody ever go through something tragic and then finally realize there's something creative inside of you and it finally comes out? I've been a musician all my life, but usually I've played backup rhythm instruments or bass or guitar in bands. I never played lead. And even when I sang, it would be backing vocals. So I never even had to learn the lyrics to all songs. I'd probably only be good at, like, what was that show? I can name that tune in 3 notes. For a living, though, I work with the homeless population and with recovering addicts. I'm a co-director of a recovery program, My Place in Recovery. We have 250 clients in our program. Smart ass. And then I also am director of Refuge Ministries International, which has domestic missions. And we have a foreign mission in Sierra Leone, which you'll hear a poem about that in a little bit, with 68 orphan girls who were orphaned because of the Ebola crisis. And we have a work in Haiti as well. So obviously I keep busy, but poems are what keep me going. Music is what keeps me going, even through dealing with some of the tragedies that exist out there. Yesterday we had a launch of a community garden at our place as part of a national day of action around housing rights. So a lot of my poems are clearly politically motivated. So I think I'm going to read, let's see, I think I'm going to read this poem that I wrote, kind of a what lies ahead kind of idea behind it. And, you know, what inspired that, of course, is what we're dealing with now um, in our current climate. What lies ahead as we dread what we are fed, a bombardment to foment revolutions against institutions controlled by corrupt forces, the sources of an endless refrain of insane rhetoric, words with no prose, but only diagnose of the dregs of society with no impropriety, a fake society that decides fates with all kinds of hate as they debate and rate the value of humanity, creating a profanity decided by the vanity of a maniac. It's fact we cannot deny with an endless supply of cruelty on display as they act out their tragic comedy of torture and forfeiture of all rights, the plights of the desperate classes in their masses, the oppressed classes of masses ignored, deplored by the world, by a king as he does sing with his madness over the sadness of the hurting. He is deserting to perpetuate the fate caused by such hate and avarice toward the poor. He creates war, this beast, as he does feast on creation with such mad elation. But a nation now rises and realizes the task to unmask this despot that must rot, that all must now risk, must rebel to overthrow this hell and foul thinking, to foul the dragon, the inhumane bane of our existence with persistence. We must now not fear, but hear the cry, not sigh and concede or plead. It's our need, our call, our right to fight and not bow. But now a new day as we say that what lies ahead will not dread. When all is said and done, will not shun or cut and run. It is our duty to resistance. It is our duty to resistance. It is our duty to this persistence, to fight, to stand up. Thank you. Just realized the format I put this on is kind of a pain in the butt. You guys ever use the memo section on your phone to... This is the first time I've done this. It's kind of a pain. Especially when I don't have my glasses. I forgot my glasses. So this is one I wrote about Sierra Leone. Kind of the inspiration for this poem is, as I mentioned, the work we do with 68 orphan girls. It's called Sierra Leone. Sierra Leone. The girls in Sierra Leone, they're not alone, surrounded by love. From above it surrounds all around. Not bound by nations, but generations come together in beloved community to bring unity that transcends hate as it descends and unbends the ravages of colonialism and the schism of white power, no longer the theme of the hour. But in solidarity with disparity that is gone, gone under. The girls once orphaned from the strife, now given new life, no longer the gun or the knife, but peace as they cease from the refrain of their constant pain. To new heights with the fights, their sights now set as they no longer fret or fear as love is nearing. As love is nearing by the man and his family, carrying and sharing all they have, the gifts to the girls. The girls of Sierra Leone are not alone. What they have now is changed and rearranged to a new scene, no longer obscene or mean, but now in solidarity, followed by clarity, such a rarity to find such clarity. In Sierra Leone, the tone of right to wrong. A new day, a new song. Thank you. Last night I was kind of just sitting in my yard. I got a nice big yard. My wife is really into animals, so we have 2 dogs, 2 cats, a macaw, a parrot, potbelly pig, and 3 chickens. Get fresh eggs every day. I love it. And I was looking around, kind of noticing in my own little neighborhood in Leelman. I don't know if you're familiar with Leelman. It's kind of a working class neighborhood. It's got its share of troubles. Matter of fact, the other night, a few nights ago, all kinds of craziness was going on right in front of my own yard. Police stopping everybody, and I guess there was some kind of drug bust nearby. And so I was going live with it, you know, right in my own backyard, kind of like having Jerry Springer for free. I don't know. I don't know if anybody would want that. So this came to mind as I was there last night in the quietness, and then I reflected on that one night where I was going live on Facebook about the craziness of my neighborhood. It's called Fight for the Beauty. Fight for the beauty. It's our duty, or is it a call to not fall for what we were told is a dream? It seems a nightmare to not care about what's around, the sound of creation that gives sensation, that elation that gives and lives within. Without that answers our doubt, our fear, as we hear the noise. With such poise, it destroys the ploys laid upon us. The profanity that tells us we need more and more as we shore our planet that we take for granted. To consume, and leave no room for beauty. It becomes a duty to own the throne, the god of consumption, an assumption that we must have things. It rings in our mind over and over, being unkind to creation, a nation now controlled by greed, no longer a seed to grow, but to exploit and use as we abuse all. We then fall far from grace and disgrace and abase who we are, and come down so far to mar our minds. Our hearts, it departs from the beauty. So now we must fight with all our might to undo what's true. We bring forth a new light, a new beauty. We fight for beauty. Thank you. All right, I'm going to take this off. Don't worry, I'm not going to dance. I'm not going to sing. That would destroy the whole vibe of poetry, not because music isn't poetic as far as singing, but I'm just going to go around in circles a few minutes. But I'm going to try my hand at freestyling. It's been a while since I've done it. This is all off the top of my head. Or the bottom of my head, I don't know. Rise up to disrupt that corporate system, that corrupt system that destroys with its ploys in our mind as we have to unwind and re-look at what is before us. We have to discuss a new framework, a new way of thinking, not shrinking, not listening to that stinking thought that's wrought and bought with the power of money. It's not funny, honey. We must recognize, we must not despise the ability to rise up to disrupt what's in front of us. It's a war out there. Yes, it's a war against the corporate whore, against Babylon. Yes, Babylon. Yes, Bob Marley said Babylon must be destroyed. Babylon must come down. And so, whether we're happy or we're seeing with a frown, we must see what's around us. This beautiful creation should cause and lead us to elation, not to a nation controlled by big money, by Wall Street. We must defeat that street and go back to the main streets. We must defeat what is before us. Let's be real. Let's feel what's inside with stride and pride that every one of us is a nation. That this nation, even with feeling consternation, is something we can change and rearrange to a different way. To not follow along in the fray. I say now, let's fight, let's fight, let's fight with all our might. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I'm going to call up Rob. I'm sorry, Vince. Vince?
Actually, I wish you were calling up Rob, because that's a hard act to follow. Yeah. Oh, I know. It's still it's a hard act to follow. It was really good. I enjoyed that very much. Obviously, my style is going to be a little bit different. And this poem is called The Ignored 1930s. And if you remember, in the 1930s, there were people talking about the rise of Nazism and fascism and saying that's not a very good thing to happen. So my style is different. I'm influenced by the language poets, and language poets kind of do a lot of masturbation and verbal masturbation. I would never do anything else. I'm getting too old, actually. All right, this is the ignored 1930s. I coughed my way to curfew, grasping at straws. It was a dream. Then roadblock after word block. Stragglers at the borders say checkpoints are useless, as are those who were dragged yesterday from their vehicles and summarily shot. Here's where we differ. Walls are ubiquitous. Once, however, I met a portal, wormhole of sorts, in 70s platform shoes, long hair, heart on his sleeves, wide lapels with plenty of wine, bread and cheese for the fondue dip. We never thought of that. Golden dawns, and yes, even then, cocaine caused cancer and kidney stones. Yes, I'm just blowing your mind, messing with your head, as heads from the royal chambers come rolling down the hill. I have your head, she said, and she did. She had me by the balls. That evening, walls sprang up in living rooms across the country. Each agreed that grazing brought less succor. We were all dreaming. Weisenheimers from the mid-1930s whispered dark messages. We couldn't make out what they were saying. Oven lights were turning on. No one was known to have slept. Thank you. This poem, I was watching a kid and his mother, and they were swinging on those benches in the whatchamacallits in Gulfport, the swings that they have. And I was thinking of a time when I weighed about 25, 30 pounds less than I do now, when I was a lot skinnier. So skinny were we. It's called being one. So skinny were we both fit on a gurney, side by side, atom to atom, Above, below, both together, being one, so skinny, and the wee child on the bench swings facing the bay, so small he doesn't ask how big the gulf, the oceans beyond, and we are one together. Long day behind ahead, appointments made, bills paid, the man coming to mend the couch, years and more just to move in. New homes, new winding shells to build around the soft, the tender, the wounded parts, and just then moving out again, and both skinny again, tied at one with the moon and the land together, and the sun and the child, wee child, swings, the swinging squeak of the bench, swing, going back, squeak, coming in, like breathing, the earth-breathing child as he swings, telling stories to his mom, who joins him on the bench, swing, atom to atom, each above, moon below, and the sun going down, and the islands across the bay, oceans beyond, rising in the sinking sun, sinking under the heavy traffic, and condos, castles, and more traffic over causeways, rising in the sun, all together, and we, so skinny, we sing, we swing on a couch, being one. I've got a whole bunch of poems. I'm trying to get I have a book together. I just need a publisher right now. I had one publisher who died on me. He read my stuff and died. Another guy, he moved down to Pittsburgh, and I haven't heard from him since. But Pittsburgh is a pretty good city, actually, so I'm surprised. All right, this is another Gulfport, St. Petersburg poem. It's called About a Woman and Her Son. A slew of rusted words, snatches of phrases, random images, half dreamt, half real, will evoke a rhythm, a kind of cradle to rest in. The rhythm will be about a woman and her son. She, 27, 28, he, 8 or 9, as she parks the SUV and they slide from their seats onto the asphalt of their parking space and gather their paraphernalia, blue folding chair, striped blankets and towels, bottled water they will need for the afternoon at this Gulf beach. She will be blonde as well as her son, slightly thick around the waist and arms, more a sign of strength, purpose, and movement than the leisure of long coffee mornings. Young, blonde, and now they are passing over the dunes, careful to use the designated walkways, for the dunes are fragile, fragile the sea grapes, prickly pear cacti, and the grasses growing there, a cricket rasping tentatively, a tiny black snake slipping by, fragile, this truce between the house on one side and the sea. They have reached the shore, put down blankets, towels, unfolded chairs. The boy has made for the wavelets breaking nearby. The weather has been calm. She looks to him, then west out into the Gulf, but the Gulf goes on. It doesn't end at Corpus Christi, where shrimp boats manned by Vietnamese refugees are putting into harbor with their nightly catch. No, farther down the coast to Yucatan, where tourists skim flat stones over turquoise waters and Mayan inscriptions have lain unread for hundreds of years. The Gulf is endless, the woman is endless, and her son. Thank you. All right, I'll do, huh? I get tired. All right, let me see. I'll do the water poem. This is called the water poem, as I just mentioned. I was happy then, and tonight, past dinner and talk of that one time, the good time, herds of water buffalo roll in the calm, clean mud at the bank of a river as gazelles in flight press themselves against the moon. Brief you contest these sudden pools at the end of a wood that approach us as if in a dream. Hardly pools, but chambers of dark water where they float, emerald, ruby, glowing in a moment of light. But what are they? Old, reptilian, unchanging. And for this, nothing need take place. A good thing merely to browse on the new grass rising from the shallow bay bottom, to roll on a wave mermaid-like, open your eyes, better to dream the sun. Able to put down the bones we have harvested and gnawed on and picked on. You see then how the deepening loss and even gain have brought us here, how a single turn may pitch and dive above us as we breach and dive, massive, collective foldings and unfoldings, returning to a sea in love with her children. How much time? One more? It's called 2016 Late Autumn, and I'm thinking of. I was thinking of those the refugees going across the Mediterranean, and the children that are kind of drowning in the Mediterranean, and in this morning without bees, children in flotsam craft crossing between worlds, I need the presence of animals. The chocolate Labrador in someone's backyard as he pants for once at peace with dog's unending hunger. And with the sun, the stark innocence of a cat, of a house cat or alley cat as she sits under a bush, licking her forepaw, then brings it to her face to rub away the remnants of a meal. The intensity of her gaze as she stalked and chased down the meal. Swamps breed the presence of animals. A glob of mud and some impossible past compacts around itself, evolving tissues of connection, bone, muscle, the black snapping turtle among the green reeds at the bottom of a pond, a pair of bluegills guarding a nest of gelatinous eggs. I need to see their many deaths and resurrections, the coral snake as she sloughs off her old skin, glides across the autumn floor of a wood, the lethal reds, blacks, and yellows, brilliant in the mottled sun. He and she as they lie half asleep on a much diminished beach in the much diminished sun. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Vince. Political lexicon. The purpose of art. Challenge status quos and bourgeois sensibilities. The left. Produce works of beauty, profundity, to elevate the individual and the society. The right. The view of America. Profoundly morally flawed, inferior to any number of European countries. That's the left. Greatest force for good among the nations of our world history. The right. Listen to the worm. Are you sentimental? Dote on plastic charm. Rod's message is gentle. Does no lasting harm. No deep thoughts to rile you. Blandness to beguile you. Pare your toenails while you listen to the schmarm. Rob is going to do a couple of pieces out of Emerson's review.
Speaking of Federico Garcia Lorca, these poems are from Flamenco Vignettes, translated by Ralph Angel, to Manuel Torres Niño de Jerez, who has the body of a pharaoh. Café Flamenco. Lamps of crystal and green mirrors. On a dark stage, Baralla maintains a conversation with death. She calls out to death, but death never answers her. And she calls out again. The audience inhales her sobbings, and in those green mirrors, her long silken dress is swaying. Thank you. Lamentation of Death to Miguel Benitez. All across the black sky, yellow, snake-like flashes. I came into this world with eyes, and I'll leave without them. O Lord of great sorrow, and then an oil lamp and a blanket upon the ground. I wanted to go where the blessed people go, and I have, dear God, but then an oil lamp and a blanket upon the ground. Tiny yellow lemon tree, cast your tiny lemons to the wind. Now you get it, because then an oil lamp and a blanket upon the ground. All across the black sky, yellow snake-like flashes. Got a couple more here. Exorcism. The twitching hand like Medusa, blinding the aching eye of the oil lamp. Ace of clubs, open scissors and a cross. In the white smoke of the incense, it resembles a mole and an uncertain butterfly. Ace of clubs, open scissors and a cross. An invisible heart is in trouble. Can you see it? A heart reflected on the wind. Ace of clubs, open scissors and a cross. Thank you. On the last one, memento. When I die, bury me with my guitar beneath the sand. When I die among orange trees and mint. When I die, bury me, if you care to, in a weather vane. When I die. I just want to thank Ian for letting me read those. Garcia Lorca is one of my favorite poets. And before I get off the stage, I want to make an announcement. Tonight at the Iberian Rooster in downtown St. Petersburg, my friend Mona Bethke, also known as Mona Lisa, is going to be restarting her First Stop Poetry Fusion thing at the Iberian Rooster from 9 to 11. And it's going to be going on every other week. So if you guys can make it down tonight, Sunday night, at the Iberian Rooster in downtown St. Petersburg. It goes from 9 to 11. I don't have the address off the top of my head, but just look it up. It's easy to find. It's on Central downtown. So. Oh, cool. All right, so we'll be there. We'll be there doing more poetry tonight. So hopefully we'll see some of you out there. Peace out, guys. Thank you.
Okay, this is something that Martha found. And I'm assuming this was written to Dallas? Okay, this is written to Dallas by Byron. May all who join us come in peace. We encourage everyone to benefit from and contribute to our joy and creativity. We practice tolerance, optimism, make peacemaking, loving kindness, and hugs. The patch thrives by promoting individual and community expression through art, music, and spoken word. We do not see the color of skin, we seek the sparkle of eyes. We cherish diversity while we consciously create community. We respect others and recognize we all are on the spiritual paths. Our quest is to continually create, support, and share with kindness, compassion, and joy. Be at peace here. Welcome home, travelers.
It's somewhere around here. Take a picture of it. I'm not sure exactly where it is. It's under front somewhere.
So, announcements. One is I'd like to thank the Blueberry Patch. I'd like to thank Bob for all the great effort he's put in. Martha Muzzy, Kurt Thompson, our volunteer, Matthew Schneider. Every Saturday is Volunteer Day. April 7th is an open mic. April 11th is the open jam. As Bob said, to be announced for the 22nd, I also want to plug the Sunlit Festival, celebrating literary arts in St. Petersburg, which is April 10th through the 25th. Full schedule of events is online at keepstpetelit.org. And also our May event will not be hosted here at the Blueberry Patch because we'll be starting our summer the summer heat wave. But it will be located somewhere downtown Gulfport, one of 2 restaurants, and I guess you could find all that out on our website. So anyways, that's it. Thank you very much.